Yeah, hi everybody, this is Charlie Barnhart again, and we're here for a roundtable discussion, and I'd like to talk about a project that we're working on called Beyond Outsourcing. It's actually a report that we're generating for the industry for Outsourcing Navigator Council. It'll be published mid-year this year, the end of June, and it talks about what the next evolution of this business is, the model itself and the service offering and so on. And so I have Cary here and David that'll be participating in this. And we have some questions. Clearly, there's nothing new about the shifting landscape in this industry. That's been happening for a long time. But what we're seeing is we're reaching the point where you don't need to look too deeply into the strata to realize that there's going to be something seismic happening, right? And I think this time there's going to be a sea change sufficiently high that the maps are going to have to be redrawn. And when that happens, we really need to know where the industry is, where it's going, and how these businesses are going to work. And so there's a couple questions. The first is, are the relationships really so damaged, so broken, so dysfunctional that they can't work anymore, and right? Or are they so imbalanced? Is the level of participation so imbalanced? And so what I'd like to do is, what are the alternatives? Or is any of this even salvageable? You want to take this question?
First I'd say the question around dysfunction. It's hard not to agree that there's certain elements of the OE and supplier relationship that I haven't found to be probably broken, being a good word for it. When I think back to our own experience, I found that we signed up for things we probably shouldn't have. We signed up for terms, we signed up for pricing, and with that being the case, you're doomed to failure. And I think that there's a certain element of that the OEs anticipated and almost to some degree designed in. With that being the case, you end up with a relationship that starts out at step one being broken. And I think probably from there, our own thesis is that eventually that's going to get worse before it gets better. I think that you're going to find that the OE sourcing groups have started to become a little bit more savvy in terms of screwing down those terms even better, focusing in on pricing even better, recognizing what drives cost, to the point where they know as much about how your business works to their own advantage and your disadvantage. That's a game of chess that, when I think back to an industry like the automotive, took a while before it came to become a problem. I think for years it became a one-sided advantage for the very large car makers. Eventually became the demise of the supply chain and the entire industry. So with that said, I think there's certain elements that are certainly broken today. I think there's certain aspects that I would argue it's going to get worse before it gets better. And I certainly see some tell signs in our industry today.
Interesting, very interesting. So one of the things, David, I'm sure you just heard said was it was related to the contracts. It was related to how the transactions take place, how the relationship structured from a legal perspective. And as an attorney, what kind of insight can you provide to this?
Yeah, Charlie, I think that what I've seen in my experience is that it's really attitudinal. And I think that the relationship contractually needs to have a certain amount of risk, respect, and trust. And without those key elements, you can't have a good contractual relationship. And I think that part of what the OEMs are is short-sighted and ignorant of the need to have those inherent in any relationship. There is going to be risk, there has to be trust, and there has to be respect. And too many times I've been in contract negotiations where it's just cramming it down and not generating those key elements. So I think that there really needs to be an attitudinal change to understand that this should be a balance of OE needs for process agreement and assurance, and OE needs for controls over certain key controls contractually that they need to have, and CM needs for process agreement on certain processes that they need to have agreed, and that there is going to be risk, and we can't force unlimited liability and open unlimited indemnities in addition to price concerns without driving an unhealthy relationship that's in some ways doomed to failure from the time it gets started.
So what I really hear you guys saying is this is an issue of balance, huh?
Yeah, I think well said. You struck a chord with me, and I think what I've said even to our own customers is that, look, if this is about you winning at my expense, this is probably not going to be a good long-term relationship. I think recognizing that there's a certain discipline on both sides of that equation, I don't think still yet is in this industry. And I think it's going to take some time. It's going to take some hard lessons. Some people are going to bow out. You got 2,000 global contract manufacturers in this industry. wouldn't take much for a good number of them to make their way out, if for no other reason because they've been on the wrong end of an agreement, like what's been described.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. It was great insights. And thank you. And I'd like to invite you to a one-on-one here if you have a few minutes.
I'll do it. Thanks, Charlie.
Yeah, and David,
Thank you,
you
Charlie.
too? You too? And if we can
great.
do some follow-up on this?
Happy to do it.
Thanks a lot. Have a great show, guys.
Thanks, Charlie.
All righty.